And one of my favorite rabbis, Larry Kushner, he tells of the time he gave a tour of his synagogue building to a group of children, a group of kindergarten-age children. Never before been inside the synagogue. Things didn't go exactly as planned. He had only just gotten to the climax of the tour when he had just gotten up onto the bima, when one of those old-fashioned ones, you remember the big arcs and the huge curtain across it, and it was time for the lesson to end. Kushner, not wanting to rush, promised the group that he would continue where they left off the following week. And when we meet again, he promised, I'll open the curtains and I'll show you something very special inside. Now, the next day, one of the nursery teachers came to the rabbi and told him what had happened next. Apparently, on returning to the classroom, the children began a discussion, a debate on what was inside the ark, what was behind the curtain. One child, wondering what was really special, what might be, thought, it's a brand new car. Another child, more in tune with the environment, argued there must be a Jewish book inside. Another thought it was just empty. I have to interrupt this Rabbi Kushner's story because there's a version that this happened to me when I was at my synagogue in Dallas. I took a group of children into the sanctuary, and I was working at this large synagogue. I asked the children what was in the Holy Ark. After many guesses, this one girl raised her hand, and she asked in the sweetest, kindest, most innocent voice, I said, what's back there? She said, Jesus? That's a true story, I swear. You see why I left Texas. Anyway. Back to Rabbi Kushner's version of this story. So the last child to venture an opinion suggested this, that when the rabbi opens the ark next week, there'll be a giant mirror inside. Now, according to Kushner, and I suspect, he embellished the story a little, but the last child had inadvertently put the finger right on the power of the Torah, the extraordinary value that through an understanding of Torah, we come to see ourselves better. It is this power that has sustained our Jewish relationship with Torah through the centuries. Our Torah adapts and is a lens through which we see the world. One of my favorite teachers in seminary said of the Torah, it is not a collection of stories that happened a long time ago. It's a collection of stories that are happening in our lives today. Just think about that. The Torah is not a collection of stories that happened a long time ago. It's a collection of stories happening in our lives today. I think my teacher was saying the same thing about the Torah's ability to be that lens, to be that mirror that reflects the new historical context. This awesome power has ensured that even through phenomenal change, and there has been a lot, how we think about God, belief in divine authorship, belief in the unity of Torah, even as this has all changed, the relationship with the text of Torah as the primary mode of Jewish existence has endured throughout. The way in which we read Torah, that we continue to read it and study it, remain central despite the variety of enormous intellectual upheavals of the Enlightenment or modernity. At no point has regular Torah study ever fallen out of practice. And for the same reason, at no point has the sanctity of our Torah scroll been questioned. Even as we debate the authorship of the words written in the Torah, even as we have questions, the Torah itself, the book itself, still remains the most sacred and the most respected object in our synagogue. And it remains bound by a series of holy rules about how it's to be carried, how it's to be read, how it's to be touched, how it's to be written. The preciousness of the Torah scroll is perhaps best expressed in a text over 1,800 years old, quoted in the Talmud, which it continues to inform to this very day the way in which many synagogues make decisions. There we read that a community may sell a synagogue to buy an ark, and we can sell an ark to buy a mantle. We can sell a mantle to buy sacred books, and we can sell sacred books to buy a Torah. However, we may not sell a Torah to buy a sacred book, to buy a mantle, and so on. The scroll itself stands at the pinnacle of the clear hierarchy of the degree of holiness. And additionally, we can, according to later Jewish law, sell a scroll in order to redeem a hostage. The welfare of human life has greater religious importance than any item. And similarly, if you do not have enough to eat, you should not sell a scroll in your possession, though later refines that law that if you truly are starving, someone can sell a scroll to feed themselves. So we see the value placed on a scroll that to sell one is considered an act in the most pressing of circumstances, the effect of having a fewer scroll in our community. It would diminish the sanctity of a community. And yet, correspondingly, it follows that to purchase or to create a scroll is an action of the greatest value and of a huge, huge honor. Led by this idea, there's a tradition in our law that every Jewish person is commanded to write their own Torah. Period. Maimonides, 12th century, one of the most influential scholars, says we are commanded, each one of us, to write a Torah scroll for ourselves. If we write it with our own hand, it is as if we received it directly at Mount Sinai ourselves. And if we cannot write one for ourselves, we are obliged to buy one or to hire someone who will scribe one for us. Each of us to write a scroll individually? Individually, we have neither the skills nor the finances to succeed in such an awesome endeavor. But as a community, we can and we will. We are going to fulfill this very mitzvah. I am honored, I am proud, I am ecstatic to announce our Tree of Life Torah project, where our board of trustees this summer, last year actually, commissioned a new Torah scroll in honor of my 13th year here at Temple Kolami. It's my bar mitzvah year. It's the year in which, thank you. The year in which together we are going to add a brand new Torah to our community and most importantly, to our next generation. A generation that I have indeed been tasked to lead with that lifetime contract. Now, when I said we'd fulfill this mitzvah, writing a scroll together, I mean it. We're literally going to write a Torah scroll this year. Everyone will have the opportunity to participate, to come down to the temple, to sit with a sofer, a scribe, and actually write a letter into the very Torah that we are going to read for generations to come. Imagine you with your parents or your grandparents with their grandchildren as a family sitting before the scroll itself, helping to write a future scroll that we as a community will be used beginning next year at this holiday. We will have the new scroll at the High Holidays next year. And if we don't, we'll delete this part of the sermon. As we create this scroll together, there will also be many opportunities to study Torah this year. So, I'm officially launching the Year of Torah. Graffiti falls down or whatever. It's the Year of Torah. The learning begins next week. If you, where is it? If you look in your program, we put it in the back. Maybe you didn't get that far. The Year of Torah. Next week, first event, following the Yom Kippur morning service, with a visiting ASU professor and myself, I've lined up scholars all year for us to study. There will also be learning opportunities for our children, preschool, religious school, teens, cradle to grave. We are going to be involved in this project. The Talmud tells us that we are obliged to write a scroll even if our parents have given us one. Making a scroll is not merely a practical obligation. It is a statement that we make. Because in writing a Torah, each of us re-engages with Torah for our own generation. This teaches us not to take the Torah for granted. Each and every one of us has to accept it as though we ourselves stood at Sinai. The commandment is not to rely on the legacy of a previous generation, which indeed this community has been blessed to have had scroll from the previous generation, but to personally write a scroll represents the here and the now. It holds true for a community as much as the individual. So in writing this Torah as a community, we'll return to the message of Rabbi Kushner. The Torah survives because of its enduring ability to give us fresh insight each time we read it. And as a result, the Torah scroll remains unique. Our theologies may have shifted almost unrecognizably from the time that the Jewish law evolved, yet it is in this area, every Jewish community around the world is united. There is nothing more precious than the Sefer Torah. So this year at Kol Ami, we have the opportunity to add sanctity to the world, to reaffirm our relationship with Torah, to have another very special thing behind our curtain to show our children. By next year, God willing, we'll have that new scroll. I cannot emphasize enough how this is literally a once in a generation, I should say, lifetime opportunity. This is not going to happen again on my watch. This is going to be an incredibly exciting year as this Torah will be the Torah we will use from here on out afterwards. So there'll be so many opportunities to get involved. I encourage you to be part of all of it. Our Jewish continuity is not guaranteed by locking down our security and strengthening our walls. It's secured by filling our hearts. This year, we're going to put a new Torah in the heart of our synagogue. May it fill our hearts with love and pride. Kini Hiratzo, may this be God's will as we say, Amen.